All right, we are live. Hello, how are you doing today?
I'm fine.
It's good to see you.
Thank you.
How's your Friday going?
It's going well. Actually, I'm off today for Juneteenth, so I'm very happy about that.
Nice. You guys get Juneteenth off?
First time ever.
That's actually amazing.
It is. Isn't it?
Well, not only that you get the day off, but
Yeah, we couldn't believe it. And my company, I work for Gannett, which is USA Today newspapers. And,
you work for USA Today?
Well, I do, yes, but for the local papers, not for.
Well, that's still like a big deal, though.
They are. They're a very large company. We're probably the largest newspaper company on earth now, I think. I'm pretty sure we are.
Yeah.
But our CEO, our new CEO, has become so progressive. He's just done some amazing things this year. And so
Well,
one of those is we got.
Yeah, I've seen it on like social media. Because I pay attention to like a lot of social media. Because after music, the next most important thing for me, in my opinion, for someone who's trying to create a music career, is community.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
And, like watching like how USA Today has navigated all the technological changes that they've been in business for is huge. And now we're like in the digital age where most people consume their news through like podcasts and social media and stuff like that. So seeing that and hearing that you're a part of that company, I think this is, I'm going to learn a lot today. I'm actually excited.
Thank you. Well, that's the interesting thing is newspapers have had to find a way to reinvent themselves, and they've been at the cutting edge, really, of the digital transformation that's happened in every state of our life.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You have to be, I mean, I don't think you can survive if you're not willing to change.
Absolutely. So, yes, that's what I do is advertising primarily. And so, yes, I'm very tuned into all of that, the ways that you can promote yourself through community.
I think that's number two. That's number two. I mean, obviously, I think that's with like any business. It doesn't matter if it's music or not. Like, obviously, your product's number one. Mm-hmm. Make sure you have like something that's good. That's something that people want. Mm-hmm. But then after that, it's community. Yeah. Because they're the ones that are going to support that product.
It's virtual word of mouth. I mean, that's
really what it is. Exactly, right? Yeah. Sharing, like, I was hearing you talk with Anna and talking about how clipping, like, a piece of newspaper, and I'm like, man, that's the exact same as sending a post nowadays.
Yeah.
Like, that was exactly what was going through my mind. I'm like, that's the exact same thing.
Right. That's right. Yeah. Exactly right.
And it's crazy. It's like, people think like, I don't know, like technology is changing us. No, we've always been the way we are. Mm-hmm. We are just operating through different means of communication. The framework's different.
It's very quick now.
We're time, yeah. Why write a letter when it can be sent in like 2 days, you know what I mean?
That's true, yes.
All right. So, other than the fact that you work in advertising and all of that stuff, tell me about like the music side. Like, how did you become a musician? What's your story?
Well, I grew up in a family. I was the youngest of 3 children, and my father comes from a very musical family. And so I'm 8 years apart from each of my siblings. So my parents, my father in particular, thought it was really important for each of them to have music lessons, dancing lessons, all that, because he felt his children would have this innate talent for music. And so my older sister and my older brother turned out had no talent for music at all. Because my mother has no talent for music. So they had kind of given up on that when I came along, and so I didn't get any musical instruction except what I got in school. Now, I did have a secondhand record player that my parents got me at Goodwill, and I had one record, which was called The Heavenly Cannonball by a group called Bill Staley, which I don't even know if that's available anymore. But I had one record and one record player, and I played that thing over and over and over. So my father, seeing that I really loved my music, got me a few little records. I had a Disney record that had Disney hits, and I had the Chipmunks. And again, I must have worn the grooves on that record and trying to learn to sing and everything, but I didn't really sing in front of my parents at all. So fast forward, middle school, we were offered the option of chorus or band. You couldn't do both. You had to pick one or the other. And so I thought, well, I want to learn to play an instrument. So I kind of went the band route throughout high school. But at some point, I had a dear friend who played guitar, and she liked to sing. And so we started singing together, and I loved her. She could teach me. She was a much better guitar player than me, but she taught me how to chord, so I could chord and I could sing along with that, strumming. And we started getting together like maybe 2-3 times a week just to sing and practice and whatever. So my father was thrilled with this, that I was showing some kind of musical interest, and he went out and bought me a beautiful Gibson guitar.
Wow.
Yeah, gorgeous guitar to play on. And that was my confidence levels coming up for singing, because she and I would sing together, and I started singing around the house, playing the guitar. And my parents were just like, amazed that now finally, like, wow, we should have given her music lessons. You know, she has a little bit of a gift, and so we started performing. Myself and Teresa, we would perform at church, like on a regular basis, really, maybe once a month or so. We were in the choir at church and all that, and they would let us sing. It's so funny when I think back of it now. They would let us sing secular music, which is very unusual in church. I remember singing Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow, which is an old Carole King song about a woman who slept with a man and was wondering, are you going to love me tomorrow? But they let us do these songs in church because, I think they just loved having us do it.
You're my darling angel.
So,
I know that's not the song you were talking about, but that was like the song that came into my head.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're the morning.
We did all kinds of songs we did religious songs too, of course. But anyway,
super quick. Just sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but the mic cable's coming up here. Just try not to touch the black thing, because I don't want that to make like a weird sound. That's all. But continue. You're good.
Anyway, so we started doing that. The other thing we would do, it's really funny to think about it now, but in class, if there was ever a project that we could get away with singing as a way to do that project, we would do it. And I remember in French class, we had to do some type of project. We said, well, would it be okay if we learned to sing a song in French for the class? Oh yeah, sure, go ahead. So we did it. We did an A. It would be the easiest A in the world, I thought, because it was something we loved to do. And it was a way to, anytime there was something at school where we could finagle a way to do a song for our project, we would do that. I can't remember how many. I remember doing several in English class for different subjects, but so it got to a point where I got pretty comfortable performing, because we were doing it fairly regularly just for fun, and so music has always been kind of a part of my life from the time I was a little kid, and singing, for me, singing's like breathing. I mean, it's just something I'm one of those annoying people that sings along to songs in the car. It's like I can't help myself. It just makes me feel better. And if there's ever a time I'm not singing, like I find myself I'm not singing very much, I think, I'm probably, in an emotional low place, because for me singing is just sort of it's a therapeutic thing, it makes me feel good to do. And what more can I tell you? So anyway, all my life I've sung, and then several years ago, I can't remember now how many years ago, probably 15 years ago, we lived in Jacksonville, and I joined a ladies a cappella harmony chorus, and I started doing quartet. I joined a quartet, and we started doing a cappella singing. And that was the first time in my life I had what I would consider voice instruction, that I was getting, learning things about the voice.
So you had sung most of your life and you were self-taught.
Yeah, I mean, I would just hear things and sing,
So that really resonates with me, because I feel like you had really, really, really good pitch control.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Definitely way better than average. Right, so that's something that resonates with me. So most of your time was spent, because I kind of group the musician skills outside of the technology stuff, but just performance.
Yeah.
How are you on your instrument? Your instrument's your voice. How are you technically speaking? Can you do the full range of the voice? Do you have control over your voice? Same way do you have control over the piano or control over the trumpet, right? Then there's notation. How well can you read music? Can you sight read music? If I put you this on a gig, are you going to be able to handle it, right? And then there's the oral awareness, which is how are you with your ears? If I play a chord, can you tell me what it is? If I play an interval, can you sing that interval? Can you sing a third above? Stuff like that's kind of the oral version of it. And I noticed just your ability to match and really blend with arrangements was there.
Well, thank you.
So and that kind of makes sense to me now that I hear it was more of a self-taught thing for you and just working at it.
It was all just hearing and trying to replicate what I was hearing, try to match it. That's what I did. Even as a little kid, I can remember, listening to singers, adult singers, and trying to sing like an adult singer. And I remember one time in church, I went to someone else's church and we were doing choir practice, and the choir director said, "You sing like an adult." She said that to me one time. I was probably 10. But that was because I was trying to sing like the voices that I was listening to. So, anyway, when I joined this quartet, that was the first time in my life that I had ever really had someone who was very knowledgeable about music. Our director was, oh gosh, I can't think of her name now. I'm so sorry, I can't think of her name. But she was an amazing musician, and she was a professor of music at the community college there in Jacksonville. And anyway, it was the first time I learned about vocal warm-up. I mean, this was all news to me, and learning the technical side of singing. But when I joined this quartet, I just remember we spent literally hours trying to match, you know, create our harmonies, match vowels, sing in a blended way. You know what we used to refer to as singing like sisters. You know,
Yeah.
where you get that sound where family members have when they sing, where it just it
Sound
just
of
gels.
music.
Yeah, exactly right. Yes. So and that was a tremendous amount of fun for me. And in fact, one of the things that we used to do in that quartet that I absolutely loved was every year to raise money we would do singing Valentines. And people would pay, I don't know what they paid, maybe $25 for you to come out and surprise someone, show up at their house, knock on the door.
Yeah,
right?
I know what you're
And
talking about.
Yeah, do these old songs
Yeah.
like Let Me Call You Sweetheart, all these real old, corny,
Yeah, I know
oldie
exactly what you're
songs.
talking about, yeah.
And what would amaze me is that you would start singing, we would start, especially if it was an office setting, people would gather, everybody in the office would gather, and people would cry. People would start to cry listening to these old songs. And it wasn't the song, it was the harmony. There's something I think about hearing harmony that just, it goes right to people's
No
core.
doubt about it. I mean, it's just, it's almost like my thesis on music, What makes like a performance good, and like everyone's like always debating, like, oh, what should I do in this arrangement, you know what I mean? Or like even me too, it's like, oh, is it too technical,
Right.
I used to be like real hard on myself when it comes to arranging, but like the reality is it really, when I really think about music and the bottom line of what it is are you doing work for the person listening, like real emotional work.
Right.
I mean, that is the thing, because if you're doing that, you've won.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Like, you could play a C major triad, like, in root position, like, and that could be the whole song. It could be Lean on Me, which is just like a 4-finger scale on piano. I could teach that to a 4th grader.
Yes.
But you know what I mean? Like, it does emotional work for people that
Right.
listen to it.
Well, I agree with you. Like, Neil Young's one of my favorite singers, and I've always loved Neil Young. And if I'm in a low, sad mood, I put Neil Young on. It's cathartic to me. And he doesn't have the greatest voice. I mean, he doesn't have a huge range of it, but to me, the emotion in his voice, the mood that he sets when he sings a song, to me, it's just, it takes you wherever,
And I think about that like a lot too. Like, if you look at like 1920s, 1930s in the United States, which was heavily dominated by like, more of like a classical style, like opera, and you had jazz come up.
Right.
And could you imagine the first time if you were like an opera freak listening to
Right.
Louis Armstrong sing?
I know.
Like, I think about that, but like, now it's a classic.
Yeah.
Now it's a classic. Now it's
Absolutely.
like people imitate that style because he made it his own. But like, I think about that now, and I'm just
Yeah.
like, could you imagine in 1930s? Like,
to me, Louis Armstrong, to be a master of the trumpet, and then also to be the voice, unlike any other, Louis Armstrong, the second you hear him,
yeah.
nobody.
Yeah,
sings
nobody
like
can
that.
sing like him.
No.
Yeah, but like, it's so strange that he has that very specific sounding
Yeah.
voice, and that's what I think about. Like, what makes a piece great? An opera singer. If Louis Armstrong would have been like 17 and
Right.
had like opera lessons, like, it'd have completely destroyed it.
It would have
Completely destroyed it.
He probably would have decided that, it wasn't for him even.
Yeah, I can't do this anymore. I'm not a
Yeah.
musician.
Yeah.
I better stick the trumpet. You know
Isn't
what I mean?
it amazing? I think about that because I play banjo badly, not as well as I wish I did. But of course, when you're a banjo player, you always learn about Earl Scruggs, and I think about this a lot. Is what if nobody had ever handed him a banjo? What if he never, the greatest banjo player that ever has created his own style of playing? What if he had not grown up in Appalachia? What if he's never given an instrument? What if his family didn't see the importance of music? I mean, it would never have happened. And it's always, to me, it's like, I'm always amazed sometimes when a person gets to do the thing they were born to do, just however that gets to happen. But, I just think that's an amazing thing.
It's just, it is, and it's weird. It's like, you almost feel like it's like destiny, but like, I don't know, like, I don't know. Yeah.
Right.
Just
right.
like the weird forces of the universe.
I know. It's true. It is kind of weird. But, so I think one of the things I did mention, one of my most huge influences as a little kid was Judy Garland. I love Judy Garland. Oh my God. The Wizard of Oz, I watched it every chance I could get. And Over the Rainbow. I mean, I remember that as being one of the first songs I remember loving, and of course everyone loves that song.
It's
just
a standard. I mean, it's just classic. It's classic.
It is.
It's classic.
And the talk about emotive singing. I mean, that it just sets, to me, there have been a lot of people who've sang it, you know, and covered it, but nobody sings it like she does. And not just that, but anything she sings. So that was a huge influence for me as a kid growing up. That was, and so of course, you know, you hear someone like that sing and you think, well, how do you do that, you know? So you try to replicate that voice. And I remember as a kid trying to, you know, learn to sing with vibrato, you know, because she had a really strong vibrato. And, you know, I must have sounded hilarious for an 8-year-old.
That's every kid, right?
Yeah, I know. And I can remember too, this is also kind of a funny story at my grandma's, because this is what I tell you, I've always loved to sing, and it's the thing I love most in the world. My grandmother lives in the foothills, or did live in the foothills of North Carolina, and she had all these rolling hills in her yard, and I can remember as a little kid running up and down those, singing The Sound of Music.
Wow, oh my God.
I'd be out there in the yard just running up and down the hill singing The Sound of Music, pretending I was, you know, Julie Andrews. So
That's great.
Yeah.
I love that.
But
Man.
all of that, you know, I think back about how much, you know, that was just, to me, singing was play. It was, you know.
Yeah, and that's what it's like supposed to be, you know what I mean? And like having that playfulness in music is everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if it's not like, you know, there's an old expression that my old piano teacher told me. It's like, if us the musicians are not feeling something when we're creating it, how could we ever expect it to rub off on someone else?
Exactly. That's
You know
such
what
a
I
good
mean?
point. Yeah, exactly.
And it's like the same thing, like, you know, keeping people like fresh, keeping people energized, especially when they're recording, because for a lot of people this is like their first or second time ever doing it.
Right.
You know, Nick's an exception now, but like he was nervous when he did Body and Soul.
Yeah.
It's like drinking like a glass of wine. Like, am I gonna be able to do this right? You know, especially then because it was like in quarantine and like, you know.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have a huge misconception of like what's possible nowadays, because we recorded that actually through a phone. We hooked this up, the microphone up to a phone.
To a phone.
And then we recorded, we recorded him singing with the backing track, which I played over on the phone, and then I brought it back home and just uploaded it onto my computer.
Oh, that is amazing! I didn't know you could do that.
We did that with Moon Dance and in the Sun.
So you could do that remotely then, pretty much anywhere.
Yeah,
you could do.
Well, it's already happened. It's already happened. I'm not, by no means am I not the only one who's doing that. You know, I mean, it's very common nowadays for everyone to kind of be set up in their home studios recording and collaborating each other remotely.
Right.
That's just happening.
Well, you know, Nick and I have talked about that, the performance anxiety. When I was a kid, I didn't have it at all. You know, I just got up and sang, and I didn't think about what you would think that a kid would be more nervous. But as you get older, you start to think about how you're being judged. You know, when you're a kid, you don't think about that. But now, I think that's part of it. And it used to be particularly hard when we as a quartet would sing in front of other singers, you know. You're like, oh, they're thinking about, you know, you're in your head too much because you're thinking about what are they seeing? What kind of appraisal are they doing? And so it's really hard sometimes to put that away and say, you know, you're not, just enjoy it. Because people really, and my banjo teacher told me this one time, which I thought was a really great instruction. He said, people want a performer to have fun. They're having fun, or they're feeling through you. And he said, if you make a mistake and they see that you're too much in your head and they feel bad for you, or they feel nervous for you, or they feel uncomfortable for you, he said, you're really hurting the audience's experience. So he said the best thing to do is just keep going and don't let it show, or make a joke about it, or smile, or acknowledge the mistake in a way, and keep going. He said, because then they're like, oh, okay, they're okay, and they don't have to worry about you. And I thought that was a really great.
Well, it's funny. I remember I used to tell like musicians that was like their first time playing something or whatever, or like they're getting like used to something, and we're like playing in front of an audience for their first time. I'm like, dude, we don't make mistakes in music. We're just being creative.
That's a good point. It's a good point.
You know, that turn of the phrase is a little bit different. Yeah, you know, I really thought we wanted to bring out a creative element there.
Right.
I actually have a story. I was playing this wedding at the Mahaffey Theater, and I was hired to just strictly play trumpet.
Yeah.
And the owner of the band at the time, who was my old piano teacher, had another gig across in St. Pete.
Yeah.
So he had to go do a church gig and come back. And we were supposed to play like this opening ceremony, and we were supposed to like play some piano and play some trumpet, and then he was going to come back, and then they were going to do the live set at night for the reception. Right? So it's the opening ceremony, right? And I'm supposed to play with the piano player, and the piano player is nowhere to be found. Is nowhere to be found. We are like looking around for this guy. We are texting Bob, who is the old, like, where are you, dude? Like, this piano player is not here at all. what happened is they got the dates mixed up.
Oh no.
So the piano player was scheduled to come in like 2 weeks, but it was like to tomorrow.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it just is what it is.
Right.
So lo and behold, this was a time where like, I was still playing piano, but I'd only been playing for a couple years. They need someone to play piano right now. Like the literal wedding planner comes over and says, I need piano now.
Oh my gosh.
So I sit down and I just play like the one song that comes to my mind, which is All Blues, which is an old jazz song at a wedding, right? So here I am playing this wedding song, like no one's gonna know, right? So we play the wedding song. My piano instructor rushes all the way back from his gig, probably normally a 20-minute drive. He made it in about 10. Like just cut the time in half, was flying around the highway, and we came and played, right?
Yeah.
But the funniest part of this story is then we played like the cocktail hour before the reception, and some guy walks up to us and goes, All Blues at a wedding.
Oh my
I don't think I've ever heard that before. That was a really good taste in music. And the guy goes, yeah, there's a reason for that.
Oh my gosh, he knew it.
That's crazy, right? But But like he actually was legitimately happy about it. Like he was like, wow, All Blues. I love that song. You know what I mean? Like, and then, I'd never heard that at a wedding. And then our bassist goes, yeah, there's a reason for that. But you just never make mistakes. And like the craziest part is the bride and groom had no idea.
They had no idea.
Because Bob walked up to him, apologized, and was like, hey, I'm really sorry there was no piano. And they're like, what are you talking about?
Oh my gosh! I can't imagine the anxiety though you guys must have felt.
Yeah, but this happens like like it's crazy because it just happens like so much after a while that like if something like doesn't go wrong sometimes it almost feels like it's going too well.
Too well, yeah, that's true. What's gonna help? Somewhat terrible.
Yeah, right.
This is over. That's so funny. Yeah, I mean that's it. Things are gonna go wrong, and you've gotta just get through it, It
just is what it is, but you get better with it over time, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like, in a sentimental mood, like, the reason why I record 2 takes now is actually because of that. Because when Nick sang it, and I actually saw it in the video when I was video editing, he sang, and he does this strange and sweet, and he sings it really nice and beautifully, and then he moves the paper right next to the mic. But he didn't realize that it had gotten picked up because it was so close to the mic, and I didn't even realize it until I was editing later. Right, so it's just like.
Is there any way to edit that out?
It took a lot of micro editing.
Oh, I bet. Oh, wow, I didn't think.
But it's just stuff like that. Just stuff goes wrong. You know what I mean? There's like no real. You just have to learn over time.
Well, it's amazing that I don't know what a professional recording artist. I don't know how long it takes to record songs, but I always imagined that it was a period of time. They would work on it for.
I've done like a lot of research and like and stuff like that, and I think record labels were holding a lot of artists back. Just looking at it in hindsight, I mean, Prince was recording a song every day.
Wow.
Every single day, and the thing is back in the 1980s and 70s, right? It's not like today where we could record in a home studio. Like this technology here.
Yeah.
Didn't exist, right? This didn't exist. Like you needed like a multi-$1,000 recording studio to actually record and get something that sounds like it does now.
Right. And you needed musicians too.
You needed musicians, because there was no MIDI really.
Right.
Any MIDI that really existed in 1990 sounded horrible.
Yeah.
It didn't sound right. It didn't sound like the MIDI of today.
Yeah. Right.
And you just had to. It was just that was the reality. So you wanted to make music an actual career for yourself, you had to go with a record label.
Right.
You had no choice. If you wanted your CD in Australia, they did the distribution.
Right.
So you were at their mercy, right? And the problem is, artists made it big, sure, but like the contracts that they signed were horrible.
Right.
And even to this day, if anyone's even listening to this podcast right now, I hope you guys are, but record contracts are historically probably the worst contract you could possibly sign.
Yeah.
Actually, it's like you buy a house.
The artist didn't make.
Yeah, well, here's how it works. There's 2 splits, right? So there's the songwriting portion, and then there's the person who owns the masters. So we recorded Good Morning Heartache.
Right.
But we didn't write the song.
Right.
So the songwriter, whoever owns the songwriter publishing rights right now, owns that portion of our recording.
Right.
And we own the other part, the masters, right? So every time our song gets played, we get paid half a royalty, they get paid half a royalty. Well, the way it worked is in the old days, labels owned both publishing and songwriting.
Yeah.
So you didn't really get any royalties. And then they would give you money, sure, they would give you an advance on
Right.
like royalties or whatever,
Right.
but you had to pay that back.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Either A, you made them the money through your
Yeah.
recordings that you would
Right.
get paid back,
Right.
or B, you actually had to go work at Starbucks and pay back the $40,000
Wow.
if your record failed.
Wow.
And then
No
on top
wonder
of that,
so many ended up,
Yeah.
completely broke.
and on top of that, if let's say you did pay it back, you don't own your songwriter stuff. So it's like you get a loan on a house, right?
Yeah.
You pay off the loan and then the bank still owns the house. It's exactly how it is. People are so
That's
confused,
terrible.
and it's still like that to
Yeah.
this day.
That is
It hasn't changed.
terrible.
It hasn't changed. That's the worst
Wow,
part.
what a racket, huh?
Yeah, I know,
It's
right?
kind of a racket, isn't
You
it?
literally have to take out money to buy the car.
So when an
you-
artist say they own their masters, that's a big deal.
That's a huge deal
huge
because that means they own their royalties. It doesn't happen though with a record label. The old trick actually, Miles Davis did it. He would actually publish stuff under his mother's maiden name.
Oh, really?
So like all the old jazz records, The
Yeah.
Birth of the Cool, are actually published under Cleo Davis.
Oh,
Cleo Davis.
Wow.
So he would get the publishing from that.
Wow. That's good. It was a smart man.
He was very smart. He was a very funny guy. Who would have came all of
He
that?
figured it out. That's-
Yeah.
Yeah, I had no idea it was that corrupt.
Oh, it's always been that bad
Yeah.
too.
Wow.
It's never been good.
Yeah.
But if you're an artist and Columbia Records walks up and they say they want to give you $40,000, here's
Right.
just a bunch of legal jargon.
Yeah.
People just don't get, like, you're not gonna know what that means when they say under contract C19 of da da da, the
Exactly.
Songwriters
Nobody reads-
Association.
really
Exactly.
reads the fine
And
print
it's
of any
always been
contract.
like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was actually a study that they did at like a major airport in like Atlanta or Denver where right at the end of using the Wi-Fi,
Yeah.
there was a fine print that said, "Oh, you also have to give away your firstborn son." And they wanted to see how many people would accept it, and it was like a 99% accepted rate. Everyone was literally like, and literally
I know.
legally in the contract it said, "Okay, in order to use our Wi-Fi, you must give away your firstborn
Oh,
son."
that's so funny.
Yeah,
So
so no one reads contracts, so
They don't. We trust that we're going to be protected by, some
you trust the guy in
entity.
the suit, right, who's
Exactly.
sitting there
Right.
going, "Oh yeah, of course I'll
Yeah.
take care of you. Just
Yeah.
sign this paper that
Right.
signs away all your legal rights."
Well, no wonder so many people are making their own music now, and
I don't. It's just a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And especially since so many independent artists are making it on their own now,
Yeah.
like I just don't see why you would sign with one.
Yeah.
Even like if you did think you were the next Weekend and you had that talent, right, to
Yeah,
be the next
right.
pop star, right?
Yeah.
You had that talent. I think you're better off waiting the 5 years,
Yeah.
grinding, building up like a studio, building up your chops on mixing and mastering, and then if you do have that talent, then it will appear itself in
Right.
your ability to market yourself, advertise yourself, create the music, create the community that I talk about, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Well,
that
something that didn't exist before that exists now. It's a way to get yourself out. I mean, you have the means now that was never available to
Yeah.
people before. It was controlled by I'm sure the radio stations were part of that.
Yeah,
when
and
your song got played.
think about it,
Yeah.
Social media is huge for the music industry. Huge,
Right.
huge, absolutely huge.
Yeah.
To your point. So distribution, right? People have to actually know who you are or have heard your
Right.
songs in order to even have an opinion, right?
Right.
Attention,
Right.
right?
Right.
Everyone was listening to the radio. So if you wanted any exposure in 1990, it had to be through the radio stations or through a record shop in which the album cover was probably more important than the
Yeah,
actual
probably
music.
so, probably
You know
so.
what I mean?
Yeah, album
Like,
covers are very important. I remember that.
that's why I spend so much time on thumbnails
Yeah.
nowadays. I actually didn't really think about it, but if you think about consumer behavior, people buy wine because of the label, not because
It's
of the
all
wine.
advertising. It's
Isn't
all
that?
advertising.
Am I wrong though? Like
Exactly.
people are gonna buy wine based
Yeah.
off of the little thing
Yeah.
on the bottle.
I've said all advertising is a sign. It's just little signs everywhere. Think about it. Brand logos. It's just
It's signs,
a little
and it's
sign.
also like knowing where attention is, and where underpriced attention is. You know what I
And you
mean?
know where your audience is because
That too.
And who is your audience?
So
Yeah.
let's go on and let's move on
Okay.
to why Good Morning Heartache.
Oh, why Good Morning Heartache? Okay, well, I love movies. One thing I love almost as much as music is movies. And so if you had any movie that was about a singer, I had to see it. I was naturally drawn to any movies about singers. Still am. So when I was a teenager, A Lady Sings the Blues came out, starring Diana Ross, about Billie Holiday. And of course, I'm a maybe 15, 16-year-old girl, so I'd never heard Billie Holiday. You know, it wasn't like I heard her on the radio or whatever.
Yeah, right.
And so I was so intrigued after watching that movie about Billie Holiday that I just became a huge Billie Holiday fan. And I listened to everything I could listen to, and she's absolutely one of my influences, one of my favorite singers, because once again, she's got that distinctive, unique style. You know her voice the second you hear it, you know it's her. And again, very emotive singer, you know, immediately establishes a mood in a song. And so one of my favorite songs to sing from that movie was Good Morning Heartache. And I particularly like Diana Ross's version of it because for me, it was placed, the key was just right where I like to sing. And so that's a go-to heartbreak song for me. You know, always when I'm feeling sad or get my heart broken. When I was a teenager, I got my heart broken pretty good, and I would just listen to that song over and over and over again. So it's like, I feel like, and I don't know why this is, other singers might say something different, but for whatever reason, songs that I learned as a young person have a tendency to stick with me more, you know, for whatever reason. And so that song, I just thought that would be a fun one to do. And knowing your style and listening to some things you did with Nick, I thought, well, that would be a good one. It's kind of a standard, kind of a jazzy, bluesy tune. And so I thought, let's do that one. That would be
I definitely want to, you know, I mean, that's obviously like kind of like my staple just because I have so much experience. I can do like a lot of stuff, but definitely like the jazz stuff for sure. And, you know, I've really kind of gotten it down to a science now on how to like arrange and produce for people and singers just because I have so many reps at it. But yeah, for me, you know, I really felt like the song needed to be very dark and gloomier, you know, especially even with like the chord voicings and stuff like that, like emphasizing a lot of minor thirds in the voicings, and not really adding too much there, and also trying to add like the contrast. Like when I hear like Stop Haunting Me Now, when I'm arranging a jazz standard, I always feel like one of the biggest, most important things is having a distinguishing A section and a B section. And the change in that song is when you sing Stop Haunting Me Now. That's when it hits the B section. And always trying to create that contrast. And, you know, those were the two things that I really heard. And I thought you melded it all well together, too.
One thing about that song, it's funny you say that, because to me that song, when it's almost like she's the lyrics are a little tongue-in-cheek in the first verse. You know, like you're talking about heartache as a person almost, you know, as this person that you're talking to that's been in your life that keeps showing up and you can't get rid of. Every morning you wake up to this heartache. And it feels a little tongue-in-cheek, but when she goes to Stop Haunting Me Now, you realize that she's really in pain. There's an agony there. There's a, you know, so the mood kind of shifts there at that point, I feel, in the song.
Billie Holiday songs are so tough for me just because of her story. You know, Miles Davis in his autobiography, when finally Billie Holiday passed away, you know, he talked about Loved You Porgy as being the favorite song that he heard her sing because it reminded him of the relationship that she had with her husband. And, you know, that song was so tough. And, like, Billie Holiday would come up to Miles all the time and be like, man, that motherfucker took all my money. Can you give me something so I can go get a fix?
She had a very foul mouth, really foul.
Oh, yeah.
She was tough.
Man, it just depresses me because I just felt like, you know, her and Charlie Parker were like the two like martyrs of jazz in a way. Because had of anyone like actually like noticed like what was happening, other than like the people that like you were in the jazz scene, right? But they didn't have any money. You know what I mean? So like, but if anyone else with like a clear mind had like walked in there and had like the means to do it, we could have had like 30 to 40 more years of Billie Holiday and Charlie Parker records that were never to exist just because of racism in America. Just that clear as day, just like that. Like that evil has deprived us. I mean, we all talk about like, look what they did in 10 years.
I know.
Look at all the stuff that they did in like 10 years. Could you imagine if that would have went on for 20 more years?
I know.
And like the creativeness and how much more they would have added.
Would have had, exactly.
You know what I mean? And how much more work would have been done for people.
I hope that, you know, the latest movie that's come out about her, you know, which is very good with Andra Day, I hope it gives her a new following with younger people, you know.
I think it will. It definitely will.
I mean, the Lady Sings the Blues, I don't know what year that was, certainly in the 70s sometime, but it opened it up for me and introduced people to her. And I hope that it'll bring more following.
It's just gonna keep happening.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, there's Billie Holiday's legacy's not going anywhere. They're still talking about Beethoven. I think they'll still talk about Billie Holiday.
And her story, I mean, it is such a tragic thing that happened, but people will say, don't. I remember reading an article, someone said, well, you don't feel sorry for her because she really lived her life so fully in terms of the way she lived.
That's definitely fair. So, it's
tragic to music.
It's tragic, yeah. It's just a tragic scenario. You know what I mean? And especially like, it's just tragic.
Yeah.
That's really all it is. You know what I mean?
It's so unfortunate how many musicians, great musicians, we've lost that way. You know,
especially jazz musicians.
Yeah, for sure. I know. I think about. In fact, I was thinking. Another singer that I loved as a young person was Karen Carpenter. I mean, and I think I loved her because I tend to have a lower voice. I don't sing. I love Whitney Houston. I appreciate her, Celine Dion, but I can't sing with them. You know, they're out of my realm. They're out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, I'm also working on my 60-inch vertical. So we both got stuff to work on. I'm working on dunking a basketball like LeBron James. You know, I can barely touch the rim, but we're getting there.
Exactly. I mean, their vocal range. I can't sing in that range. I can maybe sing an octave lower, maybe. But I loved her and Anne Murray too. I love singing because they had a low female voice, which I think that's another great singer. Died way too young and completely unappreciated. And we think of her as a pop princess, you know, and the easy listening. But man, that voice was unbelievable.
Oh,
if you
of course,
haven't listened to it lately, it's a unique and beautiful instrument, no question about that. So there's a lot of, I always love contralto singers, you know, the really low female voice, because I feel like that's where I like to play, is in that area. So anyway.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that was really good, insightful on like Good Morning Heartache and everything like that.
Thank you.
All right, so couple things, kind of some parting thoughts here.
Yes, okay.
So first off, I noticed like early on when we were talking, you said that you learned a lot of stuff just by ear and stuff like that.
Right.
So like, what are some of the processes that like happened for you that helped you like develop your voice during that time? Like, because I'm thinking for like someone listening to this, like what's something that they can take away from this, and like what's something they can like practice in the car, or you know.
Sure. Well, I think for me, once I've found a song I love, I like to hear different versions of it. I like to hear different artists, the way they sing it. So, and that was certainly true when I was younger. If there was a song that I loved, I try to find as many versions of it as I could. But when I'm learning a song, first I start by just listening over and over and over again, and then singing along with it. Then I'll sing along with it, find my place, and then sing it on my own and try to make it my own song. If that means singing a different key, that's one thing. But also just finding places where I can, do my own thing with it. And as far as technique and all of that, I don't know. It's really hard because I remember one time in the quartet, one of the leaders, not the quartet, the chorus said, "We'd like you to help, teach other people how to sing. Some of work with them." I'm like, well, I don't really, I don't know how to teach them. I don't know the technical. That part I don't know. Everything I know from singing is just from doing it, just from experimenting.
Same thing with me though, well, not with singing, but same thing with music. I was actually never formally, I had a piano teacher and I had a trumpet teacher, but, those were private lessons. I never went to school formally for it. I just played in the ensembles and stuff like that, but all the theory I know and a lot of that technical stuff and like arranging was by doing, and then also just by playing and learning about it.
Yeah.
So I completely relate there, learning by doing solely.
Well, I say this, when I do play banjo and I did play clarinet when I was younger, guitar, I can read music, and when I play an instrument, I do read music, and that's how I learn. But with singing, I never look at the music.
That doesn't surprise me.
I just want to listen to it and try to replicate it, because sometimes it can be intimidating to look at the music, especially if there's a high. You're like, oh, look at that note, that's way up there, and so sometimes looking at music actually can detract from singing.
Yeah,
overthinking it a little bit.
I've always felt like and like I know like a lot of like people are like very uptight about how things are supposed to be done, like especially if you're singing like a classical aria or something like that, it has to be done the exact way of the aria. But for a singer, like for me, it's like. The next big thing about arranging, especially when you're working with a singer, is what can I put in the arrangement, and like what can I do to make the singer feel incredibly comfortable? Right. Because there's almost a point when you listen to really good singers of where they let go. Yeah. They like let go of like this worry about like right or wrong, and they're just like singing the song
Get out of their head.
in the version that they hear it. And that's the point of where I want a singer to get to
Yeah.
when I'm
Yeah.
arranging.
And there are times like when a singer sings and there's a break in the voice, but it's nice, you know. You think, oh, that changed it completely. Now I can connect. Now I feel the emotion because I heard that little crack. Actually, sometimes that makes a song better, you know. And it's not technically perfect, but it's better for that little whatever it is that let go. That
Yeah.
feeling, they felt something there that, you know, might have ruined the perfection, but made the song so much
Yeah,
better.
but it just, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect, you know.
Yeah, right.
Nothing's
exactly.
perfect.
No, it's not. It's not. You're right. But anyway, so I would just say in preparing a song, like anything else, practice, 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 practice.
Of course.
You know?
Of course.
That's the only way that I really know how to do it, is just keep doing it. But don't overdo it and don't overthink it, just, you know.
Don't kill your voice too.
Yeah, very true.
Awesome. And then one last parting thought here that I thought maybe would be a good question to ask you. But as far as like your advertising experience, like what are some like observations or like some things that you think would be good for someone who maybe is like an up and coming musician, or like maybe trying to like advertise a product or
Right.
something like that? Maybe
Right.
it doesn't have to be music, you know, it could just
Yeah.
be like their new shoe or whatever they're
Right.
trying to
Whatever
show.
it is they're doing.
But like what do you think is like important, and like how would you go
Yeah.
about like producing and promoting that?
Well, I think that the main thing is that at least in advertising today, everything really that's happening is digital, and you can buy advertising or you can find ways to promote yourself online, sort of like what you're doing with YouTube. You can, I think it's getting it out there, right, to as many people as you can. And at some point, if you're really serious, I think it's important to spend a little money sometimes to do that through search advertising, you know, where for keyword advertising.
The Google AdWords,
Yeah,
stuff like
all
that.
of
Yeah,
that, right,
I actually
exactly.
heard people at a coffee shop talking about that. As far as like when they type in coffee, they want
Right.
their thing to be number one on the
Exactly,
list. Yeah,
Exactly. There's all kinds of amazing advertising we can do now. A lot of people are aware of this, some people aren't. There's something called geofencing where you could, if you know, there's a jazz concert coming up, right? And you know there are going to be aficionados of jazz that are going to attend that concert. We can draw a digital fence around that concert, that event on that night, and then every single person who was there and had their phone on and had their location services on, we can send your ad to them for the next month, 6 months, however long. So an ad for your latest whatever it is, you know, if you know that jazz appreciate, you know, people who appreciate jazz are going to be your audience, then they just see your ad. They don't realize why they're seeing your ad, but you've
oh, it
essentially
just pops up.
captured them.
It pops up on like their
Yeah, just
Facebook feed.
captures- Well, could be Facebook, could be just anywhere they are online. Say they're looking for a pair of shoes, your jazz album
That makes
ad
sense,
pops
yeah.
up, and they're like, oh wow, and they think, oh, what a coincidence, you know, I like jazz. This ad just.
Well, I
they
think
don't
actually
realize-
people are actually getting
Yeah.
creeped out by that. It's just
Yeah,
like,
they
oh,
are.
this is a little too
It is
coincidental.
creepy, but I will say it works because if you're the right audience, because the thing is, ads are annoying if they're for things you're not interested in. But ads are not annoying if it's for something you're interested in. If you're in the market for a car or a pair of shoes or whatever, and you go, oh, I like those shoes, I need a new pair of shoes, it's not as annoying. So that's one of the things that you can do with geofencing. Oftentimes, like car dealers, they'll geofence their competitors.
That makes sense.
These people are looking at cars, come over here, you know. So
course.
there's so much that can be done now that, yes, is creepy, but is also very effective in terms of, you know, finding your audience, hyper-targeting, you know. Who would be interested in buying your product or hearing your song or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that was great. I didn't actually know about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's like stuff like that happening
Yes.
like all the time, and like
Yes.
it's only gonna get more crazy on how
Yes.
like things are
Exactly.
done. But yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So,
All right.
all
So,
right.
is there anything you want to say, or?
Well, I just loved working with you. I hope we'll get to do something else together. Nick and I are talking about doing a duet. So
Yeah,
we'll
yeah,
start
for
doing
sure.
Some work on that, and hopefully we can do something again because it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and you know, I think this one
Yeah.
turned out really well. I was reading a lot of the comments and a lot of
Thank
reviews.
you.
People are loving it, you know.
Thank you.
Not even just on YouTube, but just also on like Instagram and
Oh, wow.
Facebook. Yeah, I'm getting
Great.
a
Great.
lot of positive feedback there. So yeah,
Good.
awesome.
Well, I enjoyed doing it. I hope we can do it again. So.
Cool, awesome.
All right,
We will.
thank you. All right. Bye.